Steel Curtain Network.
Touchdown! Touchdown para Calvin Austin! El Monte Washington es arma. ¿Quién más? ¿Quién más? DJ Watt!
What is going on, Pittsburgh Steelers fans? Welcome back to another Steelers preview podcast. I'm Jeff Hartman, joined by Dave Schofield and Bryan Davis as we break down the Week 11 matchup. It's Ravens week. In case you didn't know, it's Ravens week. Dave, what's going on? How are you?
I'm doing great. Excited for this game. Normally, I'd be even more nervous, but knowing that I'm going to be in stadium just gives it a whole different feel.
All right, there you go. Bryan, you were at the game last week. What's up?
Yeah, I am so glad to have that victory, really, because my last 10 have not been that good. And so I feel like I'm getting back on track, and that's the kind of game that just makes you smile and makes you think that you're Destiny's Child. And I ain't talking Beyonce.
Yeah, the Bryan Davis curse did cross my mind during the game, and I was like, if they lose, like he can't go to games anymore. This is ridiculous. Like he said, quite a stretch of losses under his belt.
But I am 44 and 37 all time, so it's not bad.
Okay, that's great. That's like saying the Steelers are whatever and whatever in their history. What's your last 10?
I have to put that together, but if I said off the top of my head, I would say 4 and 10.
But that would be 14. What's your last 10?
Oh, I'd say 4 and 6 for my last 10.
All right, fair enough. All right, guys, this is going to be a big game. We know this. The Ravens 7-3, Steelers 7-2. I want to talk about this before we get into the injury report and stuff like that, and is the title of the podcast. The Steelers-Ravens rivalry. It's steeped in tradition. I think we can all admit that if they played the games the way they used to be played in the early 2000s, the players would probably just be arrested, not just ejected. They would probably, like Haloti Ngata and Hines Ward would be in the back of a cruiser going to the penitentiary or something. But still, I feel like it's morphed with the game of football, and the NFL has morphed as well, and it's evolving. I feel like the Steelers rivalry with the Ravens is entering a new realm. Let me explain myself, and then I'm going to get your guys' take. The reasoning behind this was there's a lot of crossover now. And when you think about on the Ravens side, Chris Wormley, who was drafted by the Ravens, traded to the Steelers, is back on the Ravens practice squad. I do believe he's a practice squad player right now. I know he's in their organization because I looked it up. You have Arthur Millette over there, who obviously spent time in Pittsburgh, and he's now over there, and he's talking about, oh my gosh, he knows exactly what the Steelers are going to do to try to defend this offense. And you have Deontay Johnson over there now. And on the Steelers side, you have Deshaun Elliott. He's been spouting off at the mouth all week when he joined Marlon Humphrey's podcast this week. And you got Patrick Queen, who's letting it to be known to everyone that the Ravens didn't even want him back, didn't even offer him a contract. Man, it just feels like there's some tension here. Who did I forget?
Jeremiah Moon,
who the Steelers poached off the waiver wire when he was
at
released.
the end of last season,
They were going to try to get him back on the practice squad, and they took him. So I just feel like this is this new era, and there's this tension here. It feels real, and I got to be honest, I don't feel like we've had this. It's always been a good game. It's always been a rivalry, and Steeler fans love to say, well, the last 8 games, the Steelers are 7-1, and that's all factual. But this feels different. This feels like kind of the hatred is coming back. I don't know. Dave, what's your take on it?
My take is simple. This was a rivalry that was usually defined by the defenses. And the last several years, you're like, it's got to be defense because the Steelers' offense just doesn't really have anything. And they've won 7 of the last 8. But now it's like the Ravens' offense is at a whole different level. But you know what? So is the Steelers, relatively, compared to what they've been. So it's going to have a much different feel because it's not necessarily, what offense will actually put something together against this defense, against these defenses, and see who comes out when you're just, these 17-10 games that the Steelers won both of them by that score last year. We have a while to score predictions, but I don't see it shaping up that way, just the way that these teams are. If either of these defenses really has a chance to dominate, it would be Pittsburgh, in my opinion. but it's Steelers Ravens. You never know exactly what you're going to get. You talk about, I talked about on Pittsburgh Standard Time, sorry to ramble a little bit, of what it would take. I mean, my goodness, the Ravens could hold the Steelers to 0 passing yards, and they would still be last in the league if everyone else just stayed the same.
Yeah.
Because that's how far they are in last place. But this is the Steelers that they're playing, so you can't bank on that. You can't bank on anything in these matchups.
That's the truth. Brian, what's your take?
Last week was not Commanders week. It's not usually Browns week. It's not usually Bengals week. It might be sometimes, but it's always Ravens week because familiarity breeds contempt. I'm going to go back to 1991 through 94 when I was in college in a fraternity, and we had a rival fraternity at the University of Pittsburgh at Johnstown. Absolutely hated each other. We went after the same rush candidates. We were both considered soccer fraternities because we had I didn't play soccer, but we had a lot of soccer players, and they recruited on the soccer field, and you either went blue and orange or you went black and gold, and we were black and gold. And so you either went that way or you went the other way. But there were brawls. But the thing is, if you looked at them on paper, they were the same students. They were the same citizens, the same people. Just because they were wearing different laundry, they hated each other. Now, the Steelers and the Ravens, I know they have, the Steelers don't have Lamar Jackson, but the Steelers have excitement on offense, but they don't have the same defenses right now. But usually it was always rock'em sock'em robots. It was always really tough defenses. But what they do have that is so familiar, the front offices are very, very close. The head coaches are very, very close. When I say, now I call one a certain name that starts with a W, I won't call that to Mike Tomlin, but and it's true. I think the Ravens fans respect Mike Tomlin a little more than Steelers fans respect John Harbaugh, Wang Harbaugh. Yeah, I was trying to get away from that, but he deserves it.
It's not that he's a bad coach,
but he's a good coach.
Yeah.
He is a good coach. That's a good organization as far as personnel. I think they recruit the same type of players. I absolutely do. I don't think the Bengals do. I don't think the Browns do, but I think the Ravens and Steelers are very similar in one word: culture. And with that, that's why we tend to hate them even more, because they're us, but they haven't joined us. So when you see Arthur Millette over there saying they didn't want me, when you see Patrick Queen saying they didn't want me, that makes it even angrier. You don't think James Harrison got a little more fire under him, even though the Steelers cut him before? You don't think he got more fire under him every time he played the team that sent him over to Europe and then fired him twice? Yeah, he got fired up for Ravens week. So that's why this is a special rivalry. One of the best in all of sports. When we were growing up, it was Yankees, Red Sox. In football, it seemed to be Redskins, Cowboys for the longest time. And then it became Cowboys, Eagles, and there were other teams in there, 49ers, Cowboys. There were different rivalries, but this one is the cream of the crop right now, and it always circles back. It might take a year off. It might take 2 years off at the most, but it's always going to be there.
I forgot one more connection. That's Andy Weidel. The Steelers assistant GM used to work in the front office of the Baltimore Ravens before going to Philadelphia.
Oh, that's right.
So
I did not know that.
Yeah, so there's a lot
I completely forgot about that one. Yeah.
When he said the front office, I was like, wait, Andy Weidel used to be in the Ravens front office, and he did. So I think that for me, I guess when you think back to the Joey Porter Sr. going on the Ravens team bus, wanting to brawl fight the entire team. I'll fight them all by myself. Like, that's what it was. Like, that people don't understand that. There's a lot of young Steeler fans out there that really don't know. They weren't there for that. They weren't there for that feeling of this isn't a regular game. It's not even a playoff game. This is a game where you wanted to hurt someone. Like you watch some of the clips of Hines Ward, especially the game where he peeled off and hit Ed Reed and knocked him out cold. That's the one where he's over there pointing like, hey, someone come and get this guy because he's out. He's out cold. There was some dirty stuff that happened in those games. I mean, really nasty plays. The Haloti nod, everyone brings that up with Ben Roethlisberger in the nose. I still don't think he did that intentionally.
No.
It was just kind of like his hand went through his face mask.
It was a football play.
And it was just ugly. You look at Mike Tomlin and Jacoby. Oh my gosh, what's his last name? He just passed away. Jones, Jacoby Jones. Yeah, on Thanksgiving night, stepping on the football field on the punt return. Like all this stuff that happens is so weird. I don't know. I feel like this is like it's starting fresh and it's going to be different. And clearly when we talk about how these teams play in terms of how the Ravens are a Jekyll and Hyde defense, which is number 1 against the run and number 32 against the pass. It's just crazy. You're not used to this. Like, I mean, Dave, you said it, 17-10 was the final last 2 games?
Both times, yep.
How many times did we see games that ended 13-6, 13-7, 13-9 in the Joe Flacco, Ben Roethlisberger era? It was commonplace. The over-under that's set is 48.5 right now. Could you imagine a game in the early 2000s, Steelers Ravens, with an over/under near 50? I could not. Again,
and an extremely realistic case of it going over that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about that when we get to the predictions, but I just want fans to know something. New doesn't necessarily mean bad. You know, everyone was used to the way it was, and it's evolved and it's changed. I know we all kind of got these weird feelings when we saw Steelers and Ravens after the games, like being buddy and stuff, and the respect factor. There's a part of me that always missed that anger, the angst, the hatred. And so maybe we'll get some of that vitriol back on Sunday, but let's start breaking this thing down. Let's start breaking this thing down like we always do every single week here on the preview podcast. So let's start with the injury report. I think there's some interesting tidbits here. Dave, you ready?
Oh, I'm ready.
All right, let's start with the Steelers.
All right. Oh, which is funny. They added something later, which I didn't have in my article because I even made a comment about it. And then they added it later. I'm like, gee, thanks. And that was, they didn't even put Corey Trice on there to start. Which, you know, he's in the 21-day window.
Are you surprised, Dave? Are you seriously surprised?
What? That the cut and paste
that the Steelers didn't do that? Component? They didn't put him on the injury report.
Yeah. I mean, they did add him later, but as a full participant. So
the cut and paste component, Dave. That's what happens.
Yes, I know. So I'm going ahead and saying that now because I didn't have that in my article, and I'm like, should I even go back and change at this point? Nah. So here we go with the Steelers. They had 7 guys that didn't practice on Wednesday, but then that changed 8 if you count Corey Trice. That changed significantly today, Thursday. Van Jefferson with a quadricep was upgraded from didn't practice Wednesday to limited Thursday. Let's see. Najee Harris went from didn't practice with his ankle to full today. Dante Jackson went from didn't practice to limited with his hamstring. Nick Herbig was full both days. Obviously, Alex Highsmith didn't practice either day. Isaac Seumalo rested yesterday, full today. Cam Hayward rested both days. Michael Pruitt was out with a knee on Wednesday, but was added as an not injury related resting vet for Thursday. So they're saying, yeah, he didn't practice on Thursday, but it was because we decided to rest him instead. Then there was here. What's the concerning thing is the 2 new players that were added. Cornerback CJ Henderson. He's been on the 53-man roster for 2 games and inactive, both of them. But either way, with the neck, didn't practice, and Jaylen Warren with a back injury did not practice on Thursday.
Okay, I feel like it's every week now we have someone that pops up on the injury report on Thursday. We talk about it like it's dire straits on the preview podcast. They practice fully on Friday and have no designation. I feel like that's happened to us every week this year. But Bryan, what's your take on the injury report?
Well, of course, Jaylen Warren has got to scare you because he makes that team so much better because of his presence. And the other day, that was a nice stable of running backs when you add Jaylen Warren and everything he was doing. I don't care. I care, but I'm not talking about the fumble that was just that was a half a second away from being called dead anyways. But I'm not talking about that play. I think the call was fine. I'm not a big deal, but he just adds another dimension. Cordero Patterson adds another dimension, but I think you need a three amigos between Harris, Warren, and Patterson. So I really want that there. I'm going to surprise a lot of people, and I'm going to tell you that Van Jefferson needs to be healthy, because with Van Jefferson in that lineup, whether he's the third or fourth receiver, wherever if he's listed at number 2, what have you, but that just really helps things out to have him available in there, because you're going to leave you can't leave him completely alone. He's good enough to burn you if you leave him alone, but it takes another guy off of Mike Williams. It takes another guy off of course, George Pickens and Calvin Austin. So if you have 4 wide receivers out there, you might want to have Van Jefferson out there before Scotty Miller.
Yeah, that's a good point. And Reginald Rivers asked, what about CA3? He's been full go, no designation. So when he was pulled off the field against the Commanders, that was a medical check. So he was forced to leave the game. Someone, whether it was the spotter up in the box or they call down and say that player needs a check. And so then he has to leave.
But it didn't even look like he hit his head. That's why
I don't know if it was
surprised.
Maybe a reaction when he got up that they saw something. Who knows? I'm going to ask you a question, Dave, because I know this is something that's up your wheelhouse as you cover the team like I do for SteelCurtainNetwork.com. Go check out that website. Do you think they're going to expedite the 21 window process with Corey Trice, or do you think it's he'll maybe play on Thursday against the Browns?
I think it depends on Dante Jackson and even CJ Henderson.
So you think he's ready? It's just a matter of whether they'll need him.
Yeah, there's no reason to rush him back if you were just going to have him inactive just because of all the number of people you have. And honestly, CJ Henderson might be on the chopping block when Trice comes back anyway.
True.
So it's not really as much about him. But if you've got 2, I mean, if you're down a corner and then you're another corner that would get a helmet is down as well, that you could get. Now, could they bring someone off the practice squad? Sure, but I think it's going to have less to. I don't think they would even have him start practicing if they didn't feel like he was ready, especially to be a full participant on what is usually the most physical day of practice during the week. They would probably prefer to not have him play this week, but honestly, I think the biggest thing will be tomorrow when you see the game status of Dante Jackson. I think that'll probably tell you more about that than anything.
I don't think they've had anyone that's opened their windows play that week. But again, this might be extenuating circumstances, so we'll have to see.
Ben Skoranek last week.
Yeah. Was that coming off the bye? So that
was
be
coming off the bye. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll take a look and see what that. Let's go to the Ravens side. Let's see what that looks like.
Yeah, this is interesting. So they had a lot more people show up on this on Thursday. Like Lamar Jackson showed up on Thursday. He was limited due to rest. So I'm going to try to do the best I can. Cornerback Jalen, is that Amore or Armour Davis, whatever it is, with the knee, but he was full both days. Kyle Hamilton didn't practice Wednesday, but came back and was limited today. I'm sure we'll get into that one a little bit.
Yep.
Defensive tackle Travis Jones popped up on Thursday. He was limited with an ankle. Isaiah Likely was full with a hamstring on Thursday after being limited on Wednesday. Arthur Millette with a calf popped up as being limited on Thursday. Find that interesting. Defensive end Brett Ehrman with a concussion has been full both days, but I think it's something he's got to get out of protocol. And Kyle Van Noy missed yesterday with an illness, but was back full on Thursday.
All right, Brian, what's your thoughts?
Well, I'm looking at Kyle Hamilton, and I'm thinking of the rest of the defensive backs for the Baltimore Ravens. And I'm thinking of guys like Chris Hayes, Mario Cipollina, Billy Gibson. And if you don't know who any of those guys are, Johnny Cola, if you don't know who any of those guys are, Those are the news to Huey Lewis and the news. And what I'm saying is, if you don't have Huey Lewis there, you ain't gonna go see the news. All right, you just aren't. So I think this is a come hell or high water game, and there's no doubt in my mind that Kyle Hamilton will be on that field, just dragging his carcass out there, because any Kyle Hamilton is probably better than no Kyle Hamilton and better than the rest of the news.
In the past, their past defense sucks with Kyle Hamilton, let alone how bad would it be without Kyle Hamilton?
That's what I'm saying.
That was Brian's excellent point. I love that. I love that you went with the news rather than the band or something like that. That was a good one. But honestly, they're to a point where they have to say, is a 70% Kyle Hamilton better than 100% of whatever else we have?
That's true. I mean,
now then, can they get to 70% Kyle Hamilton?
They got very fortunate too that they played on Thursday Night Football last week, so they're coming off the mini bye. I have a feeling if they had played on Sunday, I don't think Kyle Hamilton would be ready. Yeah. But you know, he did suffer that ankle injury. That's going to be interesting to track and see how it goes. But yeah, like you said, this is a pass defense that as a 70% Kyle Hamilton. That's a great question. Lamar Jackson being on the injury report. If there's any fans that see headlines that don't click, don't buy into it. I don't know. The guy's on the injury report every week, and he still plays, and he's still dynamic. And so, all right. So let's talk a little bit about this new look Ravens team. They can score points quickly, and they can score a lot of them. And their defense gives up a lot of points, a lot of them. And so let's talk about the offense first. I want to ask you guys, we'll start with Dave. How do you think the Steelers should approach this game? Because, you know, you look at the numbers, and I go, you can throw the numbers out in this rivalry, but they look at the numbers and they see, wow, number 1 rush defense, 32nd ranked pass defense. Me personally, I don't see that as an invitation to throw the ball 50 times. But Dave, how would you approach it?
My approach is you're still going to attempt to run the ball. You're still going to attempt to throw the ball. And as the game evolves, you're going to see which direction you go into more. And hopefully one will set up the other. The thing with the big run defense is if you get a lead and then you want to lean on the run, you might not be able to do so. This should not be a game that you should not feel comfortable with any lead until you're in victory formation in this game. So therefore, that's why I'm like, I don't want the Steelers to just sit back and say, hey, we're going to run the ball in order to try to run clock, because you might just be giving possessions back to the Ravens. That's the key number to take from that. This is just going to be one of those things. If you really want to hear me go on a rant, you can listen to Pittsburgh Standard Time, where I talk about it for probably 10 minutes about whatever you do. If you have the option, don't take the ball, defer, don't give them the chance to double up. Because that I've said enough about that, so I won't go to that anymore. But this is it just feels different. No team is going to be out of this game. No team is going to be out of this game probably for a very, very long time. I don't care if someone's up 17 points at halftime. I still would not. If the Steelers have a 17-point lead, I'm not going to feel great about it. If the Steelers are down 17 points, especially if they get the ball coming out of the half, I'm not going to stress about it. It's that much. And think about that. 17 points won the game the last several times these teams played. So this is just shaping up to be different offensively, because that's the key to the balance between running and passing. It's not that you do the same in both, the same number of plays. It's not that you gain the same yards in both. It's that you have the ability to do it successfully either way. That's balance, even if you're running it 70-30, 80-20 to run versus pass.
What about you, Brian? How would you approach this defense if you're the Steelers?
Well, when I'm thinking about this defense, I'm thinking about Richard Marx from 1987, his very first hit, the number 3 song. Don't mean nothing. Stats do not mean, rankings do not mean anything in this game as far as I'm concerned. But if I am going to be cognizant of their rush defense, I'm going to go back to 2021 Ben Roethlisberger. And as soon as the ball's out of my hands in a second, on a lot of those Instead of rushing the ball for 4 yards, I'm trying to get it more on a screen. And I would imagine that the Steelers would go ahead and do that. Now, I get what Dave's saying about you're not going to throw it 50 times, and you don't want this team to throw it 50 times. But if you're going to do those small passes, those quick one-step drop pass and boom, it's out, it's the same thing as a run. But I think you have a little more opportunity with that. They don't use the screen game a lot, though. So maybe this is where you dust some things off. I've been listening to fans for the last 3 weeks saying, I don't understand why they would not have a Justin Fields package. If there's any week for a Justin Fields package, it might be this week. If you don't get it this week, you're probably not getting it.
That's a good point.
Well, remember what they said today. I don't know if Bryan was able to catch what Arthur Smith said today.
I did not.
That they have one. They've had it for a while. They just haven't used it yet.
Yeah. So
I think they're waiting. I think they're waiting till it's, okay, divisional games, big moments, second half of the season. Let's try and surprise them. They're not prepared for anything. We'll see. But I come down. This is what I think about when I think about the Steelers versus the Ravens defense. The defense, and I talked about this on Wednesday's Let's Ride in my Keys to Victory. The offense needs to help the defense. I go back to when Peyton Manning was the quarterback of the Colts and the Steelers were getting ready to play him. They'd always say, your best defense is to keep that guy on the sideline. Don't let him score points. If you can have those time-consuming drives, just taking up time, but they end in touchdowns. That's the key caveat there. Then you're going to be in a best position to succeed. The Ravens can score quickly, but if the Steelers dominate time of possession, and that's going to have to involve running the football. And let's be honest, they've scored quickly, but with Russell Wilson, they are more of a churn it out style of offense. They've converted more on third downs. They're running the ball at a better clip. They will get some chunk plays here or there. We know the moon balls, but still, I don't know. I think time of possession is going to be big in this game. If the Steelers can dominate there like they did last week against the Commanders, then I think they're going to be on their way to a victory. If they don't, and the Ravens are the ones that are dictating the pace, I think that's going to be really tough for Pittsburgh, if I'm being honest. Now let's flip the script, though. Let's talk a little bit about the Steelers' defense versus the prolific Baltimore offense. The Baltimore offense that is scoring, my gosh, I mean, they're running the ball better than anyone else. 182.6 yards per game on the ground. The Steelers are only giving up 87 yards on the ground. What do you guys think about this one, Dave? I'll let you go first.
Well, I think it's interesting because what's Lamar Jackson's record against the Steelers as a starter?
1 win. I don't know how many losses.
1-3.
Yeah.
He's missed a lot of those games. But here's one that's interesting. Yeah, this could have been trivia, but I went a different direction. You know that now it's with a different team, so it doesn't mean that much. But Derrick Henry's 0-3.
Didn't know that.
And he has never rushed for more than 75 yards against the Pittsburgh Steelers.
It's good numbers.
So I just wanted to throw some. Now, am I predicting that for this week? No. This is a different offense that he's in for that very reason. But you don't have to stop them. All you have to do is slow them down. And do I expect, the Steelers to hold the number one offense in the NFL to under 20 points? I do not. I am not. I know Jeff was saying the rule of 20. Defense keeps them under 20, offense scores 20, you get a victory. That is not what I expect from this game. Now, if the defense can do it, then you're going to be looking at one happy dude right here. But that's not my expectations for the defense. The job there is slow them down and for the defense, and the offense keep pace or get ahead.
Bryan, what's your take?
I think after 2 weeks straight of Daniel Jones and Aaron Rodgers, you got a little bit better preparation for Lamar Jackson and Jaden Daniels. However, Jaden Daniels would be Lamar light. I mean, he doesn't hold a candle yet. Doesn't mean he's not going to get there, but not yet. But at least you have some of the defensive mentality in place that could carry over from the Washington game. However, I want to caution everybody, and Dave just brought up the records, and he's absolutely correct about the records. I want to caution you on something, and everybody on something. Even though King Henry's 0-3 and Lamar's 1-7 or 1-6 or whatever that is,
1-4 or 1-3 actually.
1-3.
Yeah.
Okay,
As a starter.
Even though that's the case, we don't have a sample size of Lamar and Henry together.
Exactly.
And I think that's so dangerous. This scares me so much. However, what we talk about how good the Cleveland defense actually is, and the Cleveland defense held them down a little bit, but they should have won that game. They had dropped passes. They had, that losing that game was an anomaly. I just think that the Ravens have the propensity to go ahead and every once in a while just lose focus. I don't think they have their focus lost here, but you have to find a way on defense to have them lose their focus, and that's what good coordinators do. And I actually think Terrell Austin is a good coordinator, and I think he cooked up some things for Jaden Daniels that Jaden Daniels was not ready for. So it's going to be a lot harder to fool Lamar, but I think you just have to be innovative. You've got to do the Dan Fouts from the Water Boy here. What's the line, Jeff? I know you know the line. You can't.
It's Dave that always says it. Last
Dave?
game of the season.
Can't hold anything back.
Can't hold anything back. And I almost think that it's kind of like that. This is a dangerous game. I don't want us to assume that this is a win because of past records, because past records don't mean anything in today's climate, especially when you have a team that thought they were in the Super Bowl last year and imploded and learning with each failure. So I'm glad that I was going to root for Cincinnati last week, and it was hard to root. It was hard to root for Cincinnati or anybody in that game whatsoever. But I like what Dave and Jeff told me off mic last week after the game, after the preview, when they said you really don't want the Ravens coming in with a loss, with another loss, and you definitely don't want Cincinnati, who has a weak schedule coming up. So it doesn't kill you if the Ravens win that game. But the one thing to know about that game is the Ravens were tested and could have lost, but Cincinnati is not a focused team. I think the Steelers are so much more. I don't know what my pick for this game is yet. I don't have it. I'm going to have it in about 7 minutes.
Yeah.
But all I'm saying is that I keep going back and forth in my head. This is going to be a game of the year candidate, possibly.
Could be. And there's still another one left. Like, that's the thing. Yeah. It's only the first time they meet.
And the next time it'll be in a standalone game on a Saturday.
Correct.
But see, here's the thing. This is why I'm saying you just got to try to slow down the Ravens offense. They've scored 41 points in 3 of their last 6 games. They've scored 30 or more points in 6 of their last 7. It's who they are. So to think that you can't have the only way you win this game is with a shutout mentality, because it's not realistic. But what you have to do is you have to go out with the mentality of, we're going to win this drive. We are not going to give up 7, and worst case scenario, we're going to give up 3. And if you have that mentality, every drive the defense steps out on the field, at the end of the night or afternoon, I guess it should be, because it's at 1 p.m. when God intended NFL football to be played, then you can have that chance to actually do something defensively. I mean, I mentioned it this past week. You didn't realize that the Steelers were doing so well numbers-wise defensively outside of the score until the game was over. It just didn't stand out that way because there wasn't a ton of splash. So they just need to go out there with that mentality each drive, knowing that this is the best offense in the NFL right now, and the best thing you can do is slow them down.
For me, this Steelers team has been such a good second half team all season. And I actually believe that the Steelers coaching staff can make adjustments to this Ravens offense and help slow them down in the second half. Can the offense, though, give the Steelers a potential lead or stick with the Ravens in the first half? Because I guarantee you the Ravens methodology here is let's get on them quick, and then let's them completely out of their realm and out of their typical identity. And so the Steelers have to weather that storm. And I'll be really curious to see what happens in the first quarter, especially with that opening possession. If the Ravens win the coin toss, do they elect to take the ball or do they elect to defer? I could see justification with that team for both. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. But I'll tell you what, we're going to take a quick break. For those watching live on any platform, we're not going anywhere. For those listening on the audio side, we'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. All right, Steeler fans, welcome back. Second half. This is where we have a little fun on the Steelers preview. It's where we have the over-under game. We do our predictions. We do our trip down memory lane. And, of course, we have time for Steelers trivia. So let's talk over-under. Dave, do you have the updated numbers?
Oh, I do. Last week, we had one Bryan Anthony Davis struggled a little bit. He only got 2, where Jeff and I each got 4.
Oh.
And then Jeff and I got both the game pick and the over correct, where Bryan just had the pick against the spread, but he had taken the under. So the total tally right now is Jeff and Bryan are tied for the over-unders that you guys are doing at 31. I'm behind at 25, but I'm ready to get back into things. And then when it comes to the game pick and the total score, I've got 10, and you guys each have 9.
All right. It's a tight race. It's a tight race. So let's get ready for this week. 6 new over-under plays. Went a little bit different this time. Some are similar, some are different. So let's go first with Najee Harris rushing yards. Najee Harris rushing yards. I've got the line at 50.5. Bryan, you taking the over or the under?
I'm going to take the under here. I just don't. I think they are very stout up front, and I hold true to the fact that there's might be a lot of more screens in this game than you'd normally see.
Okay. Dave, what about you?
I think Bryan has a really good point. I really do. But that 50 is kind of low, and I don't know how much Jaylen Warren is going, how much, if he's really fine or not. He probably is. I don't want to, but I'm going to take the over. I'm going to take the under.
I'm going to take the under here, not by much. I think it's going to be a very even and balanced approach for the Steelers in the running game. They're going to use Warren. They're going to use Patterson, and they're obviously going to use Harris. But 50.5 against this defense, I think that's a little steep. I'm going to take the under. Let's go to Steelers rushing yards as a team. Okay, so this is team total. I've got this line at 115.5. Now, remember, the Ravens' run defense is the best in the league. They're only giving up 73 yards per game on the ground. Bryan, what are you thinking over under?
Can you go ahead, please? I hate to do this. I got distracted there.
115.5.
And that is, what's the category though? That's what my question is.
Pittsburgh rushing yards.
Sorry, so something came across.
Team rushing yards.
I'm still going under. I just don't like it with this defense. It makes me nervous.
Okay. Dave?
Yeah, I think that line's a little high, so I'm going under.
Over. So
Jeff thinks that they're going to get the rushing yards, just not from Najee Harris.
I said it's going to be an even balanced approach. And I think they're going to wear down this Ravens defense. And don't be surprised if there's a reverse to Calvin Austin or someone like that goes for 35 yards, and that's going to buoy that number. Just saying.
Would love it.
No inside information.
I'm not complaining. I'm just, yeah.
And plus, sometimes you got to take a little risk. Like last week, I was the only one that took Jaylen Warren going over the yardage, and it paid out. So, all right. Next one, Russell Wilson passing yards. I've got the line at 235.5.
So that's Wilson. Not last week you did Pittsburgh passing yards.
Correct.
You're going specifically
this
Wilson.
Specifically, let Russ cook. 235.5, Brian.
What did he end up with last week?
It was 170. Let me look real quick. I have it here. He had 195. But adjusted was 172.
I'm going to actually barely over. I think 240 is probably a cap for him this week.
All right, Dave.
I'm going over. If the Ravens put up points, the Steelers are going to have to go after it.
That's a good
and
point.
I could see them completely opening it up. I could see it over 300.
Okay, I'm going over as well. I think that, as much as I would love the Steelers to have a lead and just run the hell out of it, I think that they're going to have to throw it, and so I'm going to go over as well. The next category is George Pickens receptions. George Pickens receptions last week, even though they had a big game, only had 5 catches. So you got to think they're going to be saying George Pickens isn't going to beat us. So I have the line at 5.5, Brian.
I'm actually going to go under. Boy,
Okay.
I hate me this week. I hope I'm wrong. I hope I go 0 for 6 if I'm going to be this pessimistic. But I feel like they're not going to let him beat you this week.
Okay. Dave?
Over. I'm going over because one of two reasons for Pickens. One of two different ways I could see it playing out. One, the Steelers are winning and leading in this game because they are taking advantage of the Baltimore's secondary, and therefore George Pickens is getting a number of catches. Or two, Baltimore is out in front of them and they're having to try to hang with them or catch up. And when in doubt, throw it to George Pickens because he turns 50-50 balls into 80-20 balls.
True. I'm going to go slightly over as well. I think this is a game where the Steelers are going to want to get it to their playmakers. And
Give me a
even
number.
though,
What do you think it'll be?
6.
I'll go
6.
9.
Oh, wow. I hope you're right. Because I think if he has 9 catches, the Steelers win.
Yeah, me too.
I can
That's why I want him to have 9.
I can
Bryan-
see 6 as well,
Yeah.
but I'm still taking.
You're going with 5 instead, right?
Yeah.
Brian wants him to lose. Anyways, okay. Go Raiders, go. Okay, Chris Boswell field goals. I've got the line at 2.5. Brian, over under.
Why do I feel that this is a Boz week with not having any last week? I can see 3 out of Boz this week. I think drives stall against the Baltimore Ravens, and I think you will see Tucker kicks as well. I don't think it's going to be a plethora of touchdowns, even though they seem to have a lot. So yeah, let's go 3. So we'll take the over.
All right, Dave.
I've already picked my score, so I have to base it off of my score pick.
Same.
And I'm going under.
Same with me. That's the same with me. When
I
I
have
pick
him with
my
2.
score, I'm looking at it. I'm like, yeah, it's not going to work out for Boz this week. I think it's under. I think it's under as well. All right, the last one. The Baltimore Ravens have not turned the ball over a lot this season. They have 2 interceptions and 4 fumbles. So a total of 6, and they've played 10 games. They always turn it over against Pittsburgh, it seems like. So I've got the Steelers defensive takeaways. I've got the line at 1.5. Brian, what do you think?
I'm looking at the over. I think they get 2. There will be a strip sack in this game.
Oh.
And I can see a pick in this game as well.
All right, Dave.
Oh, that's a tough one, Jeff. That really is. I was hoping you'd go a half. That way I could take the over. I think they're going to get one. Getting one on them is a big deal.
It is.
Since they've only given up 6 in 10 games. You know what? I'm going for it. I'm going with the over.
Oh, so am I.
Good. Now I feel better about it.
The only thing I think about in these Ravens Steelers games, that fluky stuff happens. It really does. Like those tip passes that just get up, they're up in the air seemingly forever. You think about, think about last time they were in Pittsburgh with, was that last year when Linderbaum snapped the ball and he wasn't supposed to, and they didn't get points at the end of the half? Like stuff like this happens, and it can lead to a turnover.
About that in one of my shows. I can't remember which one. And that's what was so good about the Steelers drawing the Commanders offside, because the way you should do it, when they come across, you should never do it by snapping the ball. You should do it by a different lineman reacting and moving.
Which will say
Because if you snap the ball, then you're running the play if they're not offsides.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So there you have it, Dave.
Fluky. Yeah.
Did you get all those?
Oh, I got them. I'm ready to go.
All right. Let's talk game prediction now. Baltimore's, I can't believe this line. I still can't. Depending on the book that you're looking at, I looked at this earlier today. This is DraftKings. The Steelers are getting 3.5 points at home. They were getting 3.5 points at home, over under a 48.5. The over under doesn't bother me. The 3.5 points, my gosh, that's bulletin board material. So with all that out of the way, Brian, what's your prediction?
All right. I just said this, there was not going to be a plethora of touchdowns here in this game, but for the Ravens, you almost expect 3. And that's a low touchdown output for the Ravens. I mentioned that there's probably going to be a few Justin Tucker balls. So if that happens, I'm going to go ahead and say that the Ravens are going to put up 27 points in this game against the Steelers defense. So now I've got to decide where I go with the Steelers. And I've been pessimistic this entire time, but I've got a feeling. I just have the feeling that this team feels disrespected. And when you listen to my final thoughts, you'll know even more about it. So I've got to go with the Steelers 30 and the Ravens 27.
All right. Very good. Definitely the over. What about you, Dave? What's your prediction?
All right. It's very simple. I would be really tempted to have the Steelers cover but not win in this game. I'm very tempted to take that. But I'm going to be there on Sunday, and that changes everything for me. Because it's one of those things where, like, I don't care. I don't care if that's the wise decision. I don't care if that's what I should probably do with the right pick in this regard. Not me. I'm going with it. I'm going with the big score. I'm going Steelers win 34-30.
Wow. Okay.
So,
I see your.
Needless to say, that's over.
Yes, I see your win margin. I just don't have the total the same. I like the Steelers in this game 28-24. And I just thought of this. Wouldn't it be funny if the Steelers have that lead and the Ravens have the football and they're pushing the ball down the field to try and get a game-winning touchdown, and maybe they don't have timeouts, and Deontay Johnson catches a ball on the sideline and goes in and doesn't go out of bounds, but stays in bounds, and they lose. Or they need a first, or they need a first down. It's 4th and 9. He catches the ball, runs backwards, and gets tackled for 70 yards.
Somebody said that in the live chat on the Snow Bros, I think it was. Yeah.
And it's got to be Minka that makes the tackle.
Of course. Yeah. Yes. Don't give him the business when he's down there. All right. So, all right, good stuff. Let's do, Brian, you ready to reminisce a little bit?
Yeah, but you can't do the 90 this week.
I didn't give you 90 last week. I gave you way longer than 90 last week.
All right. So
you get 91 this week. There you go.
All right. 91. Here we go. 3, 2, and 1.
All right, there are so many games to talk about here. I would go back to 1997 when the Steelers were down 21-0, ended up winning the game 42-34. I could go to 2008, one of my favorite games here. There's 3 doozies in 2008. Of course, we know Troy Polamalu putting the ice pick in the game to go to the Super Bowl there. But I want to talk about a game that was just absolutely incredible, and the Steelers just did not have it. It was week 4. It was the bounty game. The bounty game when they put a bounty on Rashard Mendenhall and Hines Ward. It worked on Mendy. He was out for the season. It did not work on Ward, and they bragged about it afterwards. And when I say they, I'm talking about Suggs and Ray Lewis. But I want to go ahead and talk about the Immaculate Extension. I could do that. We don't have time for that. I could even talk about the great game 20-19 when Wang Harbs went for 2. But I've got to go back to the oddest game to bring it back up here. I got to go back to right after Thanksgiving in 2006. The Steelers lost 27-0. I was so mad. I was hoping Jared from Subway would gain his weight back in a commercial. That's before everybody thought he was a jerk, a pervert and a weirdo. I even turned my bobbleheads around on my TV because I'm like, I can't even look at you right now. I was so mad. My wife walks down the steps. I'm there with my dachshund named Palomalu. I was with Palomalu at the time. I'm sitting there. She said, "Hey, it seems like it's not time." I'm like, I'm just pissed. The Steelers suck right now. Come on down. What's up? And she showed me the stick, and the stick was to show me that I was going to be a parent for the first time. So the rest of the game was a blur. I didn't care about 27-0 anymore. I just knew I was going to be a dad for the first time. And now that son's watching games with me. So it's the most special thing. That's the game where Haloti Ngata bloodied Ben's nose that we talked about earlier in the show. It didn't matter. There's going to be great games, but there's never going to be a great feeling like knowing you're going to be a dad. So that's going to be my favorite.
All right. Close. 2 minutes and 15 seconds. I'll give you credit
but he spent over a minute talking about all the other games he wasn't going to talk about.
Yeah, you had to.
Yeah. All right. Dave, trivia time. Let's go.
Yes. Okay. So here's the thing when it comes to the Baltimore Ravens. They became the Baltimore Ravens in 1996 when they moved from Cleveland. And with these two teams, the part of the reason this rivalry is so great is because the success of these teams and how often they make the postseason. So these teams have had 28 seasons. This is the 29th season that they're playing together in the same division, with it being the Baltimore Ravens. But in those 28 completed seasons, how many times has neither team made the playoffs?
Oh my God.
In the same season?
In the same season, neither team made the playoffs.
Whoa, that's actually
I was going to say 2 times, twice. But I think it's single digits for sure. I'm sure the 2 is low. That's kind of like my 1 penny on The Price is Right.
Unless Bryan goes below you.
Yeah, seriously.
I'm actually going to have to say I'm going to go above by 1. I'll go 3, but I'm almost thinking it's 1.
It is 3.
Wow.
3 times. Any idea what the years were? I'll give you a hint. 2 of them were in the AFC Central.
Well, we know it's not 2000, so I would probably say 99. 99, maybe? No.
Well, that's a very
99.
short stint because 2002 is when they did everything into the AFC North.
I'd say 98 and 99.
That is correct. It is 98 to 99. The Ravens did not make the playoff as the Baltimore Ravens until the year they won the Super Bowl. So their first 4 years as the Ravens, they did not make the playoffs, and the Steelers didn't in those 10. So since then, there's only been 1 year where, since it's been the AFC North, that neither of them made the playoffs. Do you know what year that was?
Maybe I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to go ahead and say 2013. No, I think that's when Baltimore won it.
I was going to guess
2006.
That's what I was going to guess. 2006.
2006, the Ravens made the playoffs, but neither team made it in 2013. That was the year, 2013. Just so you know, in 2013, that's because Cincinnati won the division. Now, for back in 98 and 99, Jacksonville won the AFC Central both of those years, and Tennessee finished ahead of both teams both of those years. In 98, the Steelers were third and the Ravens were fourth, and in 99, they were opposite, where it was the Ravens were third and the Steelers were fourth, where neither of them made the playoffs. Out of curiosity, how many years do you think both teams made the playoff?
Out of 26, which obviously
Out of
there's 28. You said the 3 that they didn't, so that would be 25. potential years. I'm going to say 12.
I'm going to go 17.
And Jeff, you should have gone with 1. No, it's 7, which if you think about it, that's a lot for both of them to make it. Because think about it, when, less wild cards. I mean, it's a little bit easier now because they have the extra wild card, which, has helped with these things. But the years where they both made it all of them were since 2000. The last year, the AFC Central in 2001, they both made it. And then they made it in 2008, 2010, 2011, 2014, 2020, and 2023.
Wow. Looks like they're on track to do it again in 2024 too. So we'll see.
That's why I thought of bringing this up, because right now, playoffs started this week. They would both be in.
All right. Good stuff as always. Let's do some final thoughts. Full frontal style, Bryan. Go ahead.
All right, I need to correct myself on something. The Haloti Ngata was 2010 in that Isaac Redmond game. I'm thinking of Bart Scott almost killing Ben Roethlisberger in that 27-0.
That was Ben Roethlisberger's story of the hardest hit he ever took. That was that one.
So that's what I got mixed up. I wanted to correct myself. Let's go ahead and, man, I have a few things for final thoughts. I'm going to say this one real quick. Dave thought it was interesting that the towels did not work for the Washington Commanders. And one of the reasons they didn't work, something that he didn't realize, they didn't know how to twirl them. They were actually holding them. And if you're listening on radio, I'm just holding them up like a flag, and they just
they were flapping them, not twirling them, right?
Yeah, it was like a gentle shake. Yeah, it was they did not
look around and see all the yellow towels being twirled around, like, oh, that's what we do with them?
Yeah. You would think they'd figure it out, but we as fans outnumbered. It seemed like we outnumbered them like crazy, but it was really cool. I will give them props. They gave out salute to service hats, and I actually have it right here, gentlemen, and I'm going to bring it up. These were actually pretty nice, and
they gave those away.
They gave these away.
Wow.
Jeff, take a look.
You showed that to me earlier.
Oh, all right. So yeah, they're beautiful hats, and they're high quality, and so I was shocked. The Steelers don't give anything away. They really don't, and Jeff made a point of that last week, and that's very true. But let me talk about something. The national media, you would have thought that they were going to jump on board with the Steelers now, and they're trying to. Some of them, Stephen A. is jumping on. There's Shannon Sharp is saying, yeah, they're a legitimate contender, but most pundits right now are saying that the Steelers are not legitimate Super Bowl contenders, and the reason they're stating is because you cannot live by the moon ball alone. So the narrative right now is very funny to me, because the narrative is that all Russell Wilson does is throw up 50-50 balls. And if you watch that game those guys obviously aren't watching these games, because he's spreading the ball around, and now he's going for it on moon balls. But I think he probably threw about 5 of all the completions that he had. And I know he only had like 15 completions in this game, but they're not throwing up the moon ball or bust. And that's what it seems like the narrative is right now. I say to those guys, thank you. Keep saying that crap, because that is a bunch of malarkey, and I'm not talking Mike. What I'm saying here is that this team right now, please disrespect them, because they're taking receipts, and they're going to cash them in, and hopefully they cash those receipts in February.
All right, Dave, final thoughts?
Yeah, my final thoughts are this is an interesting game. I'm just happy that I'm going. I mean, I normally try to avoid Ravens games because I get really emotional over them living where we do in the state of Maryland. And it's just like, oh, I don't want to have to listen to Ravens fans or anything. But you know what? I've distanced myself from a lot of Ravens fans. I don't see a lot of them anymore. So I'm just like, I'm going to go and take this in. I'm really excited. Anyone who's coming to the game, seriously, I'm going to be there. Daniel Jay's going to be there. We'll both be in the same section, 122. Come look for us before the game. We'll probably see if we can get a connection to maybe even come live on YouTube shortly, for a short thing before the game, if we can managed to pull that off. And I'm just looking forward to it because it's been a while since I've been in this. I mean, last year I went to one game and it was a miserable experience because of the rain and the evacuating and everything. We're looking at gorgeous weather right now on Pittsburgh, cloudy at a high of 60 is what they were calling for when, looking at it this far out. I'm just really excited about being there in person. And with that, let's just go. Let's get this done, because part of what Bryan was saying with the national media and the narrative and everything, I think I know why they're not on the Steelers train. I think they're waiting to see how it goes against the Ravens, because they're afraid to say, hey, the Steelers are legit, and then the Ravens go into Pittsburgh and beat up on them. And then they don't want to be wrong. They're kind of waiting for that one. And I think even Steelers fans and Ravens fans are waiting for this one. This is one of the biggest matchups outside of the postseason that I've seen between these two teams that really matters. I mean, probably since the Christmas Day game, when you knew it was basically that it was going to be for the division. This is a big one. Can't wait for it.
All right. Good stuff as always, guys. Make sure you check out all of our content at the Steel Curtain Network, wherever you get your podcasts. There's so much more there than just what you see possibly on YouTube. Wherever you get your podcasts or Steel Curtain Network. Also, check out steelcurtainnetwork.com. Site's getting a facelift soon. When? No clue, but it is. So make sure you're on the lookout for that. Other than that, we'll be back. Myself and Bryan will be back on the post-game shows. Dave will be at the game, but we'll be there. Be there with us. Let's hope it's a win. Fingers crossed. You know how we finished it out. Dave, why don't you send us out?
Hey.
All right, we'll see you next week. Another Steelers preview.
Steel Curtain Network. Get it.
Everybody else gets a little tight.